Yeah, so that
and then people are like, oh, they're saying that they shouldn't holy shit, that guy's actually branded. Sorry, I'm playing League. Like, oh, they're actually saying that that black people and white people shouldn't date, and it was like, no, that's not like.
No,
Wait, did they watch the episode? Like,
they missed the whole point of the episode.
They watched.
Wait, should they?
They missed the whole point of the episode for real.
Like the whole point of the episode was that like
he was cringe. Yeah, he was like the dude was kind of cringe for like it's like dating the way he was dating was like not a cool way to do it.
Well, yeah, he was
kind
like
of an easier
specifically
show
only
to
like
adapt to live
searching
action.
out and dating white people because they're white, not
Yeah,
because,
exactly because they're
not
white.
just-
Yeah, exactly.
not like having a preference, which was like the whole point. And
You
the whole
wouldn't
point,
miss-
yeah.
You would have to get rid of one of the running jokes, but Hey Arnold would probably work really well in live action.
I can't imagine
the running joke being the fact that he has a football-shaped head, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You couldn't
unless it's a rated R fucking like horror film, right? And you want to scare people.
Oh no! Again, you could just go with the fucking creepypasta where it's like, oh, Hey Arnold was actually based off of this retarded child with a football for a head whose grandfather molested him constantly.
What?
Whoa, that went dark.
I'm not joking. That is literally the Hey Arnold creepypasta. It's like,
Napalm, I'm seriously hoping you didn't just make that all up.
no, I didn't.
I hope he did make that all up. I hope that was completely.
That would be impressive, actually.
Here's the thing: most like TV show creepypastas fall into like one or two categories where it's like, oh, there's like a secret dark episode that nobody knows. Well, I guess there's three categories. There's a secret dark episode that like nobody remembers.
Yeah. Guys, I got added by one of those Snapchat bots where they just keep sending you like it's like a hot girl and she just like sends a bunch of nudes over and over again. This shit's kind of fire. I don't even have to respond. I just get nudes for free. That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
It's like, yeah, your terms are acceptable.
So yeah, there's the Lost Dark episode. Then there's like, oh, the whole secret subtext. Like,
oh yeah,
the cul-de-sac is purgatory, or the Hey Arnold was a retarded child who was horrifically abused by his grandfather with a dick for a chin.
I would only be okay with the Hey Arnold live action if they did it like the right way, right? If it starts with all the characters just like grieving, like the fucking like pigeon guy, because if that episode is basically a whole like suicide metaphor or depression whatever thing, if they actually like do it right, you know, and they start like, no, this is the tone of this thing, this is some adult shit, it could actually do pretty well.
Fun fact. So here's a fun fact with Hey Arnold, right? Hey Arnold was going to get a spin-off series.
About who?
About Helga.
By Helga.
Wow.
Yeah,
by
it's
Helga.
Gonna be a teenage. It's going to be like a teenage Helga series, and there's apparently a pilot for it, and Nickelodeon just rejected it outright because they were like, "This is too fucking depressing." And instead,
because it started with like talking about her mom.
Ginger.
Yeah, isn't
like,
her mom like
with her
alcoholic, quote unquote.
Yeah, her mom's an alcoholic. In the basic show, her mom's an alcoholic.
Right, like they never say it outright, but it's like implied heavily that her mom's
her dad is like never home.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things where it's like, I am going to sound like a creepypasta creator when I do say this. There's like a lot of weird subtext between fucking Big Bob and the older sister.
Oh, Lord.
That's why the mom drinks.
I mean, that is the theory.
Yeah. No, I think that, remember the episode with Mr. Wynn with his daughter out in like the Philippines, like with the war and shit?
I thought that was Vietnam. Was that Vietnam?
It was Vietnam.
Wait, was it Vietnam? I thought it was.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? I always get those two mixed up because yeah.
It's literally the evacuation of Saigon. Yeah. Because he gives his daughter to like one of the dudes in the helicopter.
Yeah, and a GI. He's like,
yeah, no. The reason I get those two mixed up is because my stepfather fought in the Philippines just after Vietnam, and I always and they spare.
Who did he fight
that's why.
in the Philippines?
So there were the Philippine Wars that happened right after.
Probably some like weird Muslim group.
It was more of a police action because, as stated, I think
the Philippine American War happened like right before World War II.
I'm not. It's not. It wasn't a war. Like it's not. It was more of a police action, and it wasn't the. And that's not what I'm referencing. I'm talking about specifically after Vietnam, in the 80s, like the
Wait, are
70s
you
and 80s.
thinking of Grenada?
Were we? I don't. See, he never fucking likes to talk about it. What was going on in after Vietnam in this late 70s and the 80s? Whatever was going on, that conflict in the Philippines.
Basically, Grenada and
conflict in the Philippines.
Panama.
Yeah, Grenada and Panama.
And like nobody likes talking about those two because you get made fun of if you are like, oh, I'm a vet. Oh, what did you fight in? Grenada. Get the fuck out of here.
And no one likes to talk about it.
I remember as a little kid seeing my grandfather and the other vets kick a fucking Grenada vet out of the fucking VA hall.
Oh,
that's
wow.
amazing.
That's wild, bro.
Because they were like, you know what? On the inverse, they treated the Vietnam vets with total respect and dignity.
Oh, of course. That shit was...
What?
Because they were like,
very curious.
You guys actually bled and got fucked over for the country. Those princes in Grenada just basically got a paid vacation.
That was I'm kind of with there, Ben, on that one. That is kind of curious about Vietnam because we lost that one big time. And
no, you don't. You didn't lose. You didn't.
Here's the thing: they probably didn't like the fact that they lost, but they could respect. Like I said, my granddad and his group of like veteran fans, like they could respect, like, okay, the Vietnam vets, like they were in there, they fucking put up the good fight. Those fucking pansies with Grenada were just on a fucking vacation for like 2 fucking weeks.
Wow.
Let me see here.
Nice.
Wait, who's talking?
I don't know.
Never really got to see how he reacted to Iraq War veterans because he died in '95. So.
Oh man.
Yeah, Napalm, don't you have a whole conspiracy that the United States like perpetuated Grenada intentionally and all that? Like into.
I mean, we kind of did, but it was like, yeah. It was basically like the feel-good war of like
the feel-good war.
It was a bounce back. That's why I'm like,
we need a dub. We need to take a dub.
That's why I've been trying to fucking figure out what our bounce back after Afghanistan and fucking Iraq are going to be. And if I was Haiti, I'd be really fucking worried right now.
Oh no, we're not.
Wait, why? Why Haiti? That's a weird. Or walk me through that.
No, we've always meddled in Haiti's affairs.
Oh, we meddled, yes, but I don't think it would be any like direct military conflict going down in Haiti. That shit's just too close to home.
It might be, but like, there's not really any good places like really far abroad anymore. You know,
North Korea.
War changes.
Yeah, but like, we're never going to actually go to war with North Korea at this point. They actually
it depends on what they do. Depends on what they do.
That would be a spicy conflict just because of everything that's going on in that region.
Here's the thing. As shitty as the North Korean regime is, and as much as I would just love to fucking dust them, it is like, I kind of believe them when they say they literally only want the nukes because they're like, look, the United States hates us. So...
Yeah, No,
and it's like, look, I can't argue with that argument of like, look, we should have nukes because the United States does not like us.
But that doesn't explain their ballistic missile testing around like Japan and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you got a saber rattle every so often.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they want to do things to make them not exist. Right?
You got to make sure people still know, like, oh, they actually still do have the missiles instead of just basically what the fucking Soviets were doing in like the late 80s, where they would literally just take the fucking missile around the corner, slap a new fucking sticker on it, and be like, oh, look at this new missile in the parade.
Yeah, look at this new missile. I got into a big argument with somebody about North Korea the other day.
Oh, what did they say? Were they pro?
At this
They-
point,
It was-
sadly, North
I was,
Korea is kind of a problem that has to solve itself.
It was just leftist infighting. They were a tanky, and I was just talking to them like, look, I get it. Like you can claim the quote unquote, I'm using hand quotes here, that they're a socialist project, I guess you could say, but like, I still don't.
No, they're a fucking
I still don't
monarchy
agree.
at this point.
Yeah, like,
Yo, maybe it was the
that's what I was
Communist
saying.
Rebellion.
No,
there.
they're a late stage socialist project.
They might have like some
what
fucking
I'm saying.
treatments. I mean, hell, they don't even like
They
they
just-
don't even do like the fake fucking like bullshit that China still does, where it's like
Right, like, and even in
they
any
kinda
way, like,
give lip service to Marx and shit. But, like they've completely moved on to whatever the fuck that Sun came up with, Juicism or whatever it is.
yeah, Juice, geez, like
Yeah,
Juche,
Juice. Or,
Juice,
yeah, Juice or something
whatever
like
the
that.
fuck. Yeah, and it's like, it's
got the juice.
hyper individualist, hyper sort of like anyway, it's like some sort of softcore communist stuff. But I broadly disagree with the characterization, because it's like you guys were saying, like, it's just basically a monarchy in all but name, and you know.
Yeah, so either, and the sad thing is
that's
either
where that's where
That's
big
gonna-
state that's where big state revolutionary countries go. Inevitably, that's your future.
it's
So
like,
Danke
look,
was probably correct.
And like North Korea is basically like, look, it's either going to keep being that with the fucking Sun family, or the military will eventually just be like, you know what? We should be Burma, but with fucking nukes. That'd
Yeah.
be cool.
And then I'm like referencing, fucking Amnesty International reports, and they're like, you can't trust Amnesty. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. But like, on everything though? Like, everything? Like, you can't trust them at all? Like, even a broken clock's right twice a day. I'm just, I don't know.
Wait, is it a digital clock?
Oh, okay, you got me there.
Is
Yeah.
it a sundial though?
Is it a sundial?
Yeah. What if it's cloudy?
It depends on what part of the sundial is broken.
The sun. Okay, Ben's got to get props for that one. Come on.
I think you got more problems at that
Look, man.
point than
Look, man, get out a candle, and you can be any time of the day you want, all right?
True. Very true. Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting how, like, I mean, it makes perfect sense, but like, fire doesn't really cast a shadow. Really interesting.
No, it doesn't. No, that's,
Well,
yeah.
it is the light,
Well, it
right?
does, doesn't it?
No,
Okay,
fire
I'm-
itself,
I'm-
fire
I'm
itself
all of
does
a
not
sudden-
cast a shadow. Yeah.
Isn't that specifically like?
Well,
video
it-
of, like,
it
two
casts-
classic
it-
fires?
If you have a light source that is brighter than it, but if it's of the same, like, let's say it's all even lighting, it's not going to cast a shadow when you look behind it. You'll see the
Yeah.
wick
Luminosity
sticking up,
is
but
the
you won't see
word,
Yeah,
anything
you
else.
see that's weird, man. It's
Well,
trippy.
it is
Luminosity
because
is
it is the
measured,
light
right?
source, right?
No, like
Yeah,
if you have two
something-
light sources,
It's
if
some
you have one flame
complicated
and one,
physics stuff.
like basically, if you have one flame and like one super high powerful luminosity torch, right? If I recall correctly, the fire does cast a shadow in that particular case scenario.
Yeah,
let-
although
let-
that's
let
true
me
for, like,
know.
I think, like,
Mhm.
you can just use that with two high powered light though sources though, right?
I guess so, yeah. But let me confirm, because I might be chatting shit. It's gonna confirm.
No,
I'm
that sounds-
pretty sure I saw a video on this.
It sounds accurate. I mean,
So Mom says it was either the Murrow conflict or the Communist Rebellion, but he
I was
doesn't
looking
really
it up.
talk about it.
I saw something about the Communist Rebellion. I'm looking at that right now. Because there was
Yeah, I don't know.
from the 80s.
that
Like,
is the thing.
All I know is he
There
gets a
were,
big
like,
fat
bunch of
check like
smaller
every
thi-
single month from the VA or whatever the fuck. So
Because in the
We don't complain.
1980s, in the 1980s there were a lot of attacks, like going up through from 1981 to 1989. So that could be something to do with it. And it
well,
says
she said that she never met him until like after she met my father, which was like post 2000. So she was like, it had to have been. So because she was talking to my aunt about it, like she said it had to have been either those two conflicts, because the Vietnam War was ending around that time when he decided to like enlist or whatever the fuck. So
well, it says in '89 there were definitely contractors in the Philippines from the United States.
Oh, mercenary. Oh, well, he talks about mercenaries like all the time, but
So
he
yeah.
doesn't talk about what his relation was. Like, I'm like, did you work on like trucks or artillery or what did you do? Right? I'm trying to like use his education as like an intuition as to what he did, and he's just like, he's tried.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That reminds me
He's
of-
like really weird, like really like mentally like there's a lot of, you know, mom is like, yeah, I've had to like calm him down before because like he'll just like be at the door with like a fucking gun, like
oh shit,
panicking, like yeah, I don't know. It's mental.
It's kind of normal.
Again, they don't talk about that shit, but yeah, really really nervous. But my hypothesis, I whittled it down to, and this is mainly from stories that my aunt told me about when he was over there, or about certain things that they had noticed. I think he found a woman, fell in love, and I think she may have been killed. And either she was killed in front of him because of him, or just like somewhere in the area, like he couldn't do anything, but he knew something was going to happen, and he just had to make peace with that. Oh, well, she's dead, and then showed up, and the village was gone.
Well, that's fucked.
Yeah, because like he's got certain memorabilia from there, but like my mom was going through shit, and I guess she found it, but it was like triple locked, and then he like immediately ran in and like took it out of her hand, and you know it I don't know, some shit happened, and he just doesn't like to talk about it. He's like fun and jokes outside of that event, right? So anyway,
I don't know if Free's here right now.
Yeah. Right.
He's in here. I thought he was here. Yeah, he's still here.
He's like,
Napalm, you said your dad fought in Vietnam? Like actually fought in Vietnam? Like
No, my pap did.
Hmm.
My shitty dad would have been a fucking draft dodger most likely, and not like the cool kind of fucking draft dodger, like the shitty kind, like Ted Nugent, where he would just be like, "Duh, I'm retired. I gotta poop my pants."
Oh, you don't even gotta do all the way to Ted Nugent. You can just say bone spurs, man.
Bro, that's the one thing about having one hand. I have one hand and depression, so I mean, like, good luck. I'm never gonna get drafted.
I mean, I can at least get the bone spur shit a little bit of like, it's like, okay, you didn't just completely.
Sorry and congrats
on your fucking self.
Dude, say this. What do you mean? Sorry and congrats.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, congrats. You won't ever have to worry about getting drafted. Sorry about the one hand. Although everything you do now seems like it's a humble brag, because it's like I could literally do that with one hand because you can.
Actually, no, thinking about it, depending on the war, he probably would have wanted to go to kill minorities.
Jesus Christ!
Wait, your because your dad was affiliated with stuff, right? From what you told me, he's he liked.
Well, my pap's not my biological pap. I don't know. I wish I asked my grandmother more about it before she passed away, because I have a theory. Because at one point my dad went to live with his actual dad, and then he came back, and I'm like, that might be where the Klansman stuff started.
Klansman?
Yeah, Napalm's dad, or some. Anyway, Napalm is a story in tragedy and triumph. I think that's a good way to.
My pap, he was pretty chill for it. Like he was like stern military dude.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah, but like he wasn't like John McCain where he was calling Vietnamese people the fucking G slur until his fucking dying day. He kind of was like, yeah, because like my grandpap, he served in both Korea and Vietnam.
Holy shit.
Okay. So he probably had a different respect than...
He was infantry in Korea, and in Nam he was a sergeant or staff sergeant or something.
Well, looks like we got ourselves a war hero here. That seems...
Which probably also fed into why my pap and his buddies would respect the Vietnam vets, because he knew firsthand, like, Yeah,
was
it's
worse.
not their fault we fucking lost. It was a dumb, fucking pointless war we should have never been in the first fucking place.
Oh, you're right about
I would
that.
love to see what his opinion would be on like the Iraq and Afghan wars.
Yeah,
I remember
it's like I said, he died in 95. I was 10, and it's like it makes me sad, like, not just because, Pap died and all, but it's like, I wasn't curious about a lot of these things back then when he was still
I remember
alive.
when I was getting my BS in social psychology, I took a lot of different like political science classes and stuff. And there was this guy there. He was actually a part of Operation like Iraqi Freedom, right? And what was really kind of crazy.
Good.
What?
Oh, no,
you were too?
No. Just finish what you're saying. I'll talk later.
Oh, well, no, like so he was part. He was part of that.
All I really know about my Pap's military service is like, because he talked a bit about Nam, but like he never talked about Korea.
I was Enduring Freedom. I was in Iraqi Freedom, but go ahead.
So
that was so interesting.
Not have a fun time in Korea.
So he was there in class, and we would sit like next to each other, right? And my like anarchist like perspectives on like shit like techno whatever, right? Classing against like his stuff. It was funny because sometimes like he would trip up and say the Soviet Union and I would, and we would like have a nice little laugh about it because we knew we meant different things when we were referencing it. Yeah. But when we got to talk about the Iraq and Afghan war, well, he started with Iraq first because he wanted to tie back to the Afghan war, because he said there's so many different hands with Afghanistan, and it's basically where nations go to die. That's what the teacher kept reiterating. But he was showing us like footage and videos and like different things, about like right when that happened. And, there were a couple of times where my classmate had to like walk out because he's just like, yeah, it's, kind of intense. But he had stated that the news really didn't cover how much like they were just on their own doing shit, having to like just rough it every single day. Because like I think he said for like the first like week or so they had like quote unquote some guidance, but at a certain point they basically was just like new phone who dis, right? Yeah, and it was really tragic. So because he said they were also in charge of like trying to make sure that infrastructure was like there, and that was one of the first things to go. It was a whole thing. But they don't really discuss that. So these days, but no, like if you were a part of it, like I imagine. I mean, what was your designation? I guess.
I worked in maintenance mostly, but I was on 3 deployments, all of them like more than a year, to places all around, like not in Iraq, but like pretty close. And I don't know, it was like fascinating. Like you see a lot of shit. There's a lot of weird stuff happening, and I don't know. I mean, what do you specifically want to know about it?
I mean, emotionally, not much, but like academically, I'm, just curious because like
the experience. Go ahead.
Well, you won't be able to quantify it, right? It would be like if I asked my mom, so when you were raped as a child by a family member, to walk me through that. Like it's never gonna make any fucking sense, right, to me. But no, I guess from the technological point of view, like I just can't wrap my mind around not having like a game plan, right? Like even in the NFL, you have like a 2-minute drill, right? Yeah. Like that's like a standard. I don't know how you could send these kids. I mean, there were quote unquote adults there, but I mean, kids for lack of better term there without any kind of like hierarchy, who to go to, your POC is, all that shit. Like it's just baffling to me.
Yeah, it's like I knew people definitely who were like 17 years old all the way up to like 25, 30 and older than that. But it was, I don't know, shit was weird. Like obviously the lower you are on the totem pole, the less you know about whatever the fuck our plan is precisely and what exactly is going on. So it was just a lot of like kind of like waiting around and just like hoping that you're not gonna do some weird like dangerous shit that might get you hurt or killed or whatever. And just a lot of waiting around to do nothing mostly. That's what I would describe it. So a lot of waiting and a lot of like busy, like it comes in waves. Like you're busy for a lot, and then you're like waiting around for shit to happen for a lot, because like you're waiting for the higher ups to say, okay, this is what we're doing today. This is our mission, and da 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 da.
Do you have like an opinion on like us like pulling out of Afghanistan?
Jeez, I think the shit was done really weird, man. Like, it was basically we left and there was like no infrastructure left, and then so like obviously the Taliban immediately took over, and then like shit went to shit immediately. So yeah, it was pretty fucked.
See, like my whole thing here is like I like because just trying to remember, you know, during the whole, you know, like back then, and it's weird. Like my memory is like really weird pre 9/11. Post 9/11, it's like
yeah,
I don't know, like, but what I think the thing that's interesting to me during that time period was just how confused like everyone was like at every stage of government, because we've like our whole country is sort of built to fight other countries like since the beginning. Like our job is to fight, like you have to have a navy, you know, some type of like actual like military and like fight doing all this guerrilla shit. It's like, you know,
shit was this was like like you're saying, like war, like we don't fight these kind of wars. Like we learned our lesson, or we were supposed to have learned our lesson in Vietnam, and then here we are doing this shit again, like guerrilla warfare in the mountains and the hills and shit, and we're not equipped to do that.
Well, so like my thing here was we had like if we would have like I don't know, even like annexed that area, we probably would have been better at it, because then it would have like some, I don't know, like laws, regulations. Here's what you need to, here are the experts, etc. But because at first I remember the conversation changing from like fighting bin Laden to Osama to terrorism to
exactly.
nation building, and then security, and then then we just stopped putting the number, like the fucking the names of like the soldiers that were like dying, like because like they used to do that like every night at like 8:00. Like you'd always have them like cut out. Yeah, and then they don't even have the things at the bottom of the screen anymore. It's, you know, so.
No, you're right about the like moving target thing. It's like I couldn't, to this day I couldn't tell you what precisely we did there. Like I know things were happening. Like I know we were like training people and like maybe even building some infrastructure and giving out humanitarian aid every once in a while, or but I couldn't tell you what our goal was. I can't tell you what that. I have genuinely no clue, and I was there, so I have genuinely no clue.
Yeah, my mild autism like protects me from like the whole draft shit anyway. But like this guy asked way too many fucking questions. Like, wait, why are we here? That doesn't make sense. I don't understand.
Iraq.
Yeah.
Afghanistan was no real reason either. I mean, all that shit in the modern age. It's just a lot.
Well, I think Afghanistan had a reason. It's just the reasons weren't good. I don't understand Iraq beyond like, because that was one of the things that we were talking about. Because he was talking about like Saddam, like his dad, or his dad's dad, then his dad, then Saddam and his relation, and then his sons, or like his oldest one, I guess. Because there's a whole like family there. It's like, well, okay, well, his son might be a sociopath, but it seems like Saddam is more of like a narcissist kind of guy, but he has some sense of rationality. Because in the 80s and 90s, like here's what he's done, and here's our relation with. It was super, like it almost went into conspiracy territory, but our teacher laid out every fucking thing, and I'm like, oh my god, this needs to be like mandatory schooling. He's just like, it's not. It takes like 10 years and 20 books to like, you know, even get like this chunk out, you know, unless you're like just terminally online, you know. But then we started talking about, you know, the fucking elections and shit. So.
Oh yeah, man.
You know, because they try to put like, that's the thing. Like, how do you try to give a place democracy? Like that's a weird concept. We're gonna force democracy on you. You don't get a vote on it. Like it's an amazing thing. Yeah. You'll get democracy whether you want it or not. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's true. Some people can't handle democracy, which is why you shouldn't give it to them.
This guy.
This
Yeah,
guy.
I'm one of the things where
We're
I'm
literally
one of the
saying the
people.
same thing. You shouldn't give people freedoms that they don't know how to use.
I'm saying you shouldn't force. You shouldn't force, right? Leave it available. Don't force it.
Freedom.
Force freedoms.
How do you force freedom?
Well, freedom is
that was what they said at the time. They said that we were that was one of the things that they said at the time, that we were trying to give them democracy because they didn't have it. And not until they had it would they understand the value of it to try to preserve it. So we had to force it to them.
Well,
right? that was
force freedom upon them, and it didn't work because ultimately they don't want freedom.
I think a more appropriate way to characterize it would be we're trying to sort of like somehow put an American frame of democracy onto a place that hasn't had anything like that, and they have their own because it's not like really a unified way in that we would consider it. It's like lots of like loose states and tribes and people in like different regions doing things that really don't.
Some of which were honored during like Saddam's like initial reign, actually.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of loose knit groups kind of working together and sometimes fighting each other, but like, you know, it's very, very different than what we consider. Like it's like just very different.
Yeah, they're not capable of like making decisions for themselves because they've never done it before.
Oh no,
Your Honor, he doesn't speak for me. Your Honor.
Well, how is that wrong? You're saying that democracy doesn't work in a place that's never had it.
No, I didn't say that. I'm just saying that we're trying to force an American version onto a place that has its own idea of what that means.
What is their idea of democracy?
Okay, well, like British democracy is not American democracy. Like you can't force the two to be the same because there's two different histories there.
Right. So what's their version of democracy?
Of British people?
No.
Of Iraq?
Iraq's version?
Oh, well, I don't think they have one now.
I mean, yeah. Well, now they have like a Taliban thing going on, so that's.
Yeah. So what was their version of democracy that we should have helped them build?
Well, that's the thing. Like, we shouldn't have helped them build anything. Like, we should not have been there in the first place. But that's a whole other.
Democracy.
Yeah, but you said that we tried to institute an American form of democracy. What is an Iraqi form of democracy? What does theirs look like?
That's for them to decide, but they can't.
It probably would be like a more republic version of what they had under Saddam.
Right, loose-knit states and tribes, like a confederation almost. A confederation, probably.
Because that is kind of like
direct democracy more representative.
Is direct
democracy? No, because you would still have Saddam as like the end-all be-all there. I'm not sure if they're forms of government, because our three forms of government are specific to the type of democracy we have.
Yeah,
it's not like we have like a religious representative for the country, or like different tribes that the president would have to like respect.
Right, like a confederation or something like that.
Yeah,
like
so that would be kind of interesting.
Like Lakota Nation is like a confederation of tribes. Like that's an example of like, I think of what would probably happen under normal circumstances if they were allowed to proliferate on their own. But that's not really up for debate anymore.
And so why do you think the American version failed for them? Like what component was incompatible?
Well, we didn't get a chance to. I mean, I guess we didn't get a chance. We weren't even at the part where it's like, all right, this is democracy. Here's the person, and here's all. Like, we weren't even doing that.
Right, like because the whole time we were out there fighting like Taliban and like separatist leaders and shit like that. Like, there was never even a chance. Like, okay, now that here's a clean slate. Now let's set something up for you to self-govern. But so it was still like a civil war type of period. And now the Taliban.
So we just needed to be there longer.
No, I don't know what the right answer is, honestly, but clearly what we did didn't help. So
you generally can't force democracy on anyone. If you look historically at any country that's gone through it, it's always the people rising up to take power. It's very rarely something that is bestowed upon people.
Exactly.
You possibly could argue that there is some honor or justification in the attempt to do so, but it needs to be a two-party thing. You need to offer the hand, they need to take it. And
well, imagine if like all the different we had part of the UK for we had part of the UK for Afghanistan, not for Iraq though, right?
I think
right?
we
think so.
were involved in both, yes, to a limited degree.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought for one of them you guys like rejected or gave like a no confidence or something for like the prime minister for that.
Yeah, they're part of both. They were to some later.
Okay, well,
not to the
okay.
same extent, definitely, but I'm sure we were part of both. I'm not military myself though, so I don't
know. Everything with Blair is like also like kind of fuzzy for me too. So
yeah, there was a whole lot of Blair. I don't remember all of it honestly. I was very young, but
well, that was all to do with 9/11 and the justification stuff, and there was kind of concerns about him being a bit of a misleading. I think is possibly the best term.
I think
lying.
Well, the one who did all the lying was Colin Powell. I'm thinking like the UN meeting, sort of like about the justifications for why we were there, about like weapons of mass destruction and all that.
Yeah.
Well, so did you hear his like reason for that?
No, what did he say?
He said he didn't even really check. He just said that he believed the State Department and like what the president said, and didn't believe that even if they were to lie to someone else, they wouldn't lie to him. And I'm like, oh, my brother, dude, this is rude awakening here.
That reminds me of that.
Because you notice after that, Condoleezza Rice never said shit. She never asked any questions. She was like, nah, I learned my lesson.
No, of course not. Even to this day, bro, she's still defending that shit. But that reminds me of that.
I hate how. Yeah.
I was gonna say that reminds me of that Wendigoon thing. Is like if you think the government will never do that, you're wrong, or some shit like that.
We probably have. We're doing it right now. Whatever you think.
Whatever you think, bro.
Yeah, no, I
Go ahead.
I was just thinking about. I remember the when the whole Edward Snowden stuff had happened, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think it's kind of crazy how like Citizen4 like got like an Oscar nod or like whatever or the indie like whatever.
Yeah.
But like no one gave a shit about like the substance of like the documentary, and I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
The fact that Jon Stewart has to like go to Russia to like make people go, oh, this is serious. When is this happening? It already happened like a week ago.
Yeah,
what?
Right.
Yeah, it's too late. It's too late.
It was two people at the same time. It was Edward Snowden and there was another person.
A lot of people confused him with Julian Assange, right? But
but that was
there was,
slightly after, I think, Edward Snowden.
Was it Chelsea? Not Chelsea.
Chelsea, yes,
Chelsea Manning.
Chelsea Manning, yeah, that was it.
Was she before Snowden though?
I think.
Was that 2013?
Was that either before or around the same time?
Because he was like that was around 2013 with Snowden, right? That was Obama's second term. Or no. Yeah, it was Obama's second term. Because he.
I remember for Snowden, he leaked some stuff about something. I can't remember specifically, but it was like something about like the what's
Heartbeat.
Heartbeat.
It's probably herpes.
No, the NSA spying.
Yes, that was it.
Surveillance system, and also the CIA implicated because he was also a contractor for them for a little bit as well.
Yeah, I do remember his was notable because didn't he have like a really sweet gig in like Hawaii or some shit like that?
Yep.
And
he did, but so like and they kind of go over it in the documentary and the movie actually, but he like initially like he actually enlisted, if I'm not mistaken, he tried to enlist after the September 11th and all that, and he was very very gifted, despite the fact that he didn't have like a lot of like post-secondary like education regarding like computers. A lot of his stuff was like self-taught, like so. But he wanted to find a way to like actually like contribute, and due to an injury, he ended up going into more like the analytics route instead of like being like like first infiltrate or like whatever. and just ended up, you know how that works, right? Once you get your foot in the door, people start talking and networking. You know, you do something real nice for somebody, and they're like, "Hey, I know a guy that's working on this. He's kind of a nerd, but yeah, like he might be great for. I'll send him your way, right?" And then rises up, and he was about to be part of like the NSA's like elite hacking like team, like of like less than 5 people, right? For like the whole kit and caboodle. And he that was around the time when existential crises started to occur, and he made a decision. But he would have been set. He would have been one of the no-name deep state people if he like his foot was like he was shaking hands with like all the right people. So which was funny, and they bring this up in the in Citizen 4 actually, where like at the end they talk about all the people that's like, yeah, I don't know who that person is, like he's like a 29-year-old hacker, I don't give a shit, right? You know, like trying to downplay it, right? And then you see him shaking hands with literally like the most powerful people at the Pentagon and everybody. It's like, oh, this no-name hacker no one gives a shit about is in a lot of interesting places. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was thought it's funny. The whole Russia thing was actually kind of like, apparently it was a weird scenario because he was originally going to try to go back to the U.S. around this time, I guess to like face trial or whatever, treason charges or something.
Yeah.
But they blocked his passport because he was from Hong Kong he was on some layover in Moscow, and because of that, like, oh, your passport isn't working. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, and it's like, oh shit. So then he was just stuck there, and Putin wasn't gonna do anything regarding that because we were in Syria at the time, right?
Yeah.
And there was all that shit going on, and it was just, one of those things, and he's been there the whole time. More power to his girlfriend, who became his wife, though, because it's like very few women I'm aware of would like cross the street for some dude, right? Yeah. She's like, I'm gonna go to a whole other country because I love him to death.
God, jeez, that's a different kind of
Yeah, I know. Like, you do whatever, whatever, or maybe it's like, Mom, he knows all my passwords to shit, I have to go. Like, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
like,
shit.
Yeah. I can't.
I do think. Oh, go ahead.
No, nothing.
And I was gonna say, I do think the Chelsea one was also very fascinating. I was like looking at it just now. I think the big part of hers was like the Baghdad airstrike thing about like the truck with the kids on it. I remember that.
Doesn't she have like a YouTube channel or something?
Yeah, she's like a popular figure now. Like she does a lot of like interviews and stuff. I think what's it called? There was like a thing like a while back where H-Bomber guy, if you know who that is, was like he had like some live stream going to like raise money for charity, and like she was a part of that. And so she's like done public talks and been on TV shows and stuff.
I just remember hearing about like, so when you were in prison, like what was it like? And she basically just describes like, like just being in like a hole like forever, and it's just like, oh god.
Yeah, not even prison.
I didn't know.
Like a military brig. Like, shit is fucked. Fucked up.
So I actually did not know that. I mean, not until like I guess more recently. Like, so I guess like post Trump that our solitary confinement is considered like a form of torture, like in different places. Like,
oh yeah. Psychological.
I had no idea. I was like, really? I was like, huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that shit is like the real deal, man. Like the people get super fucked up from that stuff.
My girlfriend, who's she's Mexican American, she said she would rather be in prison in Mexico than in the U.S. And I'm like, why? And I'm just like, she's like, well, because in Mexico I could be like a fucking queen there. Over like in the U.S., I'll just be in like a small like cardboard box with like white walls until someone decides to Epstein me. I was like, oh, okay.
Same, like,
and you'll see how stupid of a take that is. You think American?
I don't know, man.
Horrible Mexican. What do you mean you don't know? Literally, look at it. It's
terrible.
horrific compared to the U.S.
Our prisons are awful, man. I don't know.
Yeah, they're worse than other poor countries. Go figure.
Yeah.
Well, she's judging it from the perspective of a Mexican American who has, so born here. I mean, like, if you're familiar with where Durango is as a state down there, right?
Oh yeah.
El Chapo is not far from that area. You have obviously different cartels control different states, and there's on the no-fly whatever. But she's processing it from that point of view, right? I would process it from a person who only knows swipe or no swiping as my Spanish competency, and not that familiar with the culture and shit. They would have a field day with me. Whereas over here, I'm pretty sure I could survive.
In prison?
I would try to do what I could do to see if I can get myself into the mental or the psych ward.
Man, American prisons are next level, man. I'm telling you, our shit is close to probably the worst in the world. If it's not, it's pretty close to it.
So we have a lot of technology and we have medical intervention and stuff like that other places don't. When it comes to the whole right thing, because that's the thing, bureaucracy can convince people that things are better because there is order, right?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily.
What do you think makes American prisons worse?
All the black people.
Well, for one, the 13th Amendment.
That is true. There are more black people in American prisons.
Kidding. That was cynical. You were not supposed to agree with that. That was. God damn it!
I'm supposed to agree. I would just say the conditions, and because our prisons are for profit, primarily, so we have a lot of.
What is worse about it? You can't just say for profit. You got to say there's more violence, there's more rape.
Because I'm going there because they're for profit. We try to stuff them as full as we possibly can get them, and so
she would also be in a women's prison too, and I go to a men's.
You think
prison.
American prisons are more overcrowded?
Absolutely. We have more prisoners than any other country in the world.
That doesn't mean that they're more overcrowded. All right, so if I were to say look at Mexican prisons and look at the number of people in a Mexican prison, do you think there's higher or lower in terms of density?
I would say American prisons have higher density for sure.
All right, let's find out.
Let's find out.
Does it? I don't really think it matters the density of it. I think what matters is the quality of care.
He said that's what makes it worse is the density.
I objectively know that there are more American prisoners than any other country on the planet.
As a per capita thing, that is true. But now you need to look at the number of prisons and the number of people per cell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wait.
That's what. Go ahead.
No, I'm listening. You said numbers per cell.
Right. If he's saying it's the density, if it's overcrowding, that could be something. You can't just say American prisons are worse because there's 100 people in prison and we have 100 prisons. Well, that doesn't make it worse.
A high number doesn't mean density, obviously. And plus, if you start looking at national statistics for prisons, you're gonna get a lot of variance because
because we have minimum, we have. Mild, we have max. If you're in a super max, you're probably there's no roommates like that, right?
Yeah, America's worst prisons are probably up there with the worst in the world, and Norway's best prisons are way better than America's best.
But Norway has prisons? Is it just a gymnasium with the soccer, the coach?
It's like a YMCA. It's like a YMCA.
Yeah, that's come on.
Well, yeah, this is what I'm
that's
looking
good
at
though.
The extremes,
that's good though. What they're doing is good in my opinion.
You have to watch a Captain America video. So you got arrested. This sucks. What are you gonna do now? Well,
how are you gonna rehabilitate yourself?
Yeah. Let's try to prevent recidivism, buddy. Let's see how you can get you on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, that
I mean, but also another thing you mentioned already, the solitary confinements.
You done goofed.
You done goofed. I would also say like in prisons, like healthcare is incredibly substandard of what the regular population would receive.
But like God, like this could just be xenophobic, bit, but like in Thailand, don't you just like that? Like I feel like I've seen like a prison where you just stand all day. Like
it's in Thailand?
Yeah.
I'd have to look that up. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Like there's just a giant.
Those are only for like serial killers, though.
Well, the thing is, when you talk about overcrowding, like there's nowhere else to put, like the traffic offenders, so they just put them there.
I'm not saying other prisons are not also bad. I'm just saying like America's up there with like some of the worst.
Let's talk to Brittany Griner.
No, you said they were worse. Hold on.
Yeah.
Don't backtrack now.
Doing like physical labor for like less than a puff of weed.
Yeah, that was pretty fucked.
Have you found that source yet? Because I have a source here for occupancy rate.
Occupancy isn't well. Do you have the like per capita?
But that's the thing. A lot of this information is also kind of protected as well when it comes to layouts for like prisons and shit like that, because they want to prevent escapes. So
it states the amount a person can hold and how much is filled up. That's all it states. That's all I could find.
Okay, so what's the Americans' capacity? Like, what percentage is it?
It's saying here 95%, 95.6%.
Yeah, see, I'm reading here 124% capacity at Mexican prisons.
Yeah, you might be looking at the same source. And it's ranked 133rd for when it comes to how overcrowded they are.
Yeah, so Mexican prisons.
How many prisons? How many prisons do we have per like? I mean,
how many?
Because like Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, has like 100 million people.
So in the U.S., 34% of inmates were housed in single cell, 24 were double celled, and the remaining 42 were housed in units of 3 or more inmates.
I just posted the source I was
corresponding looking at. Mexican amount.
Hold on. Okay, so it says 46% share their cells with at least 5 other inmates. Okay, in Mexico.
So yeah, in Mexico, I'm reading 124% capacity. So they're 24% over the capacity of their prisons.
I mean like that's 95. So like we've been trying to release, if I'm not mistaken, over the past 20 years, right? For that specific, like they're like, I know a guy who like, yeah, they just walked up to him and was just like, hey, free to go. He's like, why? It's just like overcrowding. That's the excuse they gave him. So like he was able to go, right? So in terms of the turnaround, like I'm not sure, because you also have to compare it to like what type of prison. Like I don't think the majority of people are in like supermax prisons here, right? So I mean, like it's not just about how many people are in a particular cell, right? Because
I'm saying that the United States holds at 103.9% prison capacity for this study, and Haiti is the most overcrowded, but like U.S. is up there.
So it depends what you're looking at.
I mean, that's still considerably less than the Mexican one, right?
Okay, but like 90 to 100% is like that's up there. Like
it is it's up there, but if you're saying that the metric as to why the United States prison system is worse than Mexico's is overcrowding, and then I look at the stats that say that Mexican overcrowding is worse.
Yeah, but just because Mexico.
Well, actually, it was more like you'd said you wanted to know like a list of different reasons, and that was just one. So I imagine there's like,
well, that's the only one it gave me.
I'm saying like.
So how much? Well, so wait, but that is overcrowding, though, right?
It is overcrowding, but if you're saying one is worse than the other, and yet the metric you give me is the inverse, then that seems to not be the reason that it's worse.
No, like if it was like at 40%, that would be like, okay, so America doesn't have overcrowded prison. But if it's like 90%, like 95%
versus 124%.
Well, right, but also that's not really fair, because we can look at things like Ireland or Canada or Austria, who like we would all agree have probably better prisons, and they're still at like 102, 103%.
Yeah, but he said that Mexican prisons were better than American prisons. He didn't say European prisons.
He had said that our prisons are really, really bad, and you took.
He said Mexican prisons are better than American prisons.
I didn't say that. I never said Mexican prisons are better. I said American prisons are close to the worst. I didn't say Mexican prisons are better.
You literally did. I
did
asked
not say
you,
that.
do you
I
think
never said
Mexican
that.
prisons are
I mean,
better
I
than
don't remember him
American
saying that they were
prisons?
better. I remember him saying they were real
I said
bad.
American prisons are close to the
No,
worst.
he
That's
didn't
my
just
claim.
say
Like
bad.
100%.
He
The
said
American prisons are
American
close to the
prisons
worst
were
prisons.
worse than Mexican
If not the
prisons.
worst, they're close to it.
And so I asked
All right.
him by what metric, and the
Now we
one that he
compared
gave
with
me
Mexican prisons,
was
but
overcrowding. So then when I look
Well,
at
it also depends on the
overcrowding,
states as well,
and I
right?
agree those are
Because
worse
if
numbers
you're
for
in
sure.
like, if you're in like a popular, like a place like Dallas versus a place
Quiet where's
like
everybody at?
I don't know, like if you're in like Columbus versus or like Cleveland Penitentiary or some shit,
New York and LA are the worst, and like
yeah. So to be clear, even
Arizona.
in the Mexican country, they have other states that are also worse.
Is everybody
they have
reading or
some
something? What's happening
that are
right now?
over 200% capacity. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's variation, but I don't understand how variation is the counter to Mexican prisons are better than American prisons. That just, by the metric given, that doesn't hold up. Maybe there's other metrics.
The number itself doesn't really say much, right? It's more about.
It does if I say I'm taller than you, and you say, okay, what's your height? And then I give you a height that's shorter than you. You say, well, then you're not taller than me.
If I were to say, for instance, if I were to say I'm better than you, right? And you say, like, well, what do you mean by better? And then I said I'm taller, right?
Right.
Like,
and then we measure
then
and
that's
we
okay.
find out that you're not taller. And I say, well, that's not why you're better than me.
Yeah, but I'm
actually
still better.
the further you go,
Okay.
yeah, that'll probably. But
okay, well then we've disproven the height thing. So what's your next premise? Because overcrowding didn't work.
Well, it's not. Well, but here's the thing, though.
Or
when you
start
think
with a new
it doesn't
thesis.
mean. What doesn't mean that, because I think someone had mentioned like Norway or like Austria or like other places, right? Like it's not just that, right? But if you agree that, okay, this would count as overcrowding, what does that mean for this place versus that? It's like, well, in this place, the allocation of resources and et cetera, would be such as that. But in this place where there'd be overcrowding, like you'd actually see like the opposite effect or something. Like that would be the thing that would have to be demonstrated, right?
I'd rather be in an overcrowded Norwegian prison. Like, oh no, there's 3 of us in the spa room. Like, this is so overcrowded. Like, that's fine. But being overcrowded
oh my god,
in an American prison, like, oh no, like they have to, like I'm sleeping on the
that
floor.
swastika, did you draw that yourself or just in the fucking the room?
Just by what metric is Mexican prisons better than American prisons? Or are we just going to back off from the idea that Mexican prisons are better? Because that's probably the best thing to do, is just to back off from that.
Well, in the case, as I said before, in my girlfriend's example, she was processing it from the standpoint of herself having a preference, like if she was given a choice, right? And that is a very personalized, like, like she speaks the language, I don't, right? She has family and connections there that I do not, right? She'd probably be put in a women's prison. I would be put in a man's prison, right? So just when you break down, like just from an intuitive perspective, it probably would be more comfortable.
I know some in South America are so overcrowded that they've started mixing them.
Sorry, guys, that was
we tried to do that here.
My connection cut out for a minute there. I missed like half of what everybody said. What happened?
No, I was just saying that, like, from my girlfriend's point of view, she's viewing herself as the quote unquote inmate given a choice and using her experience, her knowledge, her family connections and stuff like that to make an induction as to like what she would prefer, versus like someone like me who really only knows America, particularly Ohio, and would have to make a judgment off of that, right? I mean, heck, by that standard, it's like, would you rather go to school like, in Columbus, or would you rather go to school in like, I don't know, like, wait, is there still a West Germany? I'm kidding. Or someplace over in Europe, right? And I would probably say, no, I'd probably just go to Columbus just because
That's
like
so
all my
silly.
shit is here.
When is the last time you've heard about a gang attacking an American prison and executing more than a dozen people?
Like, wait, what?
Yeah, this happens in Mexico, where the cartels literally will raid a prison and execute a bunch of people.
Usually
that's in the U.S.
So there's a couple of different things that have happened with that. There have been situations where guards have been like, wasn't there one where like a couple were gang? Anyway, you can look at, some. I don't know how often or how frequent, but even that I don't think that's remarkably frequent. Like they have remarkably less. I think even like less school shootings per.
Multiple articles of different incidences.
I'm not talking about the article. I'm talking about the article.
Raiding the prisons.
I'm talking about the nature of crime in Mexico versus the nature of crime in here, here in the States. Two different like philosophies, two different contexts.
Right? Doesn't that make their prisons worse?
Does it make the prisons
they
worse?
Have an entirely different type of violence that bleeds over into the prisons, then it sounds like what you're describing is that the prisons in Mexico have an extra dimension of shittiness.
No, it's more like.
But that's
so, for instance, right? Like here in the States, you are more likely to be killed by someone at random, essentially. In Mexico, you're more likely to be killed because of some type of connection to organized crime, like the cartels or something like that. So for that reason, murder one down there is much more frequent than other types of crimes that you would see here where a person is killed, right? That doesn't mean that you can say like, okay, well, are less people getting killed in these situations or that situation? Are more people getting robbed in this situation or that? Like, I think here you're more likely to get raped than down there. Like, there's just so many different, like when you really break down the nature of crime, you have to take in the culture of the place that you're considering, right? Yeah. So for that reason,
so like if they have like 3 times the murder rate in Mexico versus the United States, like what does that mean?
The number by itself doesn't mean anything except you have 3 times the murder rate.
What's
the number itself doesn't tell. Numbers don't tell you a story. They're just a means by which you can tell a story.
What do you mean numbers don't tell this? How else do you tell the story if not by aggregate data?
No, you have to.
No, numbers don't tell a story. Numbers don't tell a story any more than words tell a story. We tell a story using words and numbers, right? That's what I'm saying. You gave me a number, right, or a stat, but that doesn't,
Yeah, data requires interpretation. Like it can't just be taken at its face. You could sort of rationale anything from any data.
You could tell the story just by looking and like explaining the numbers.
Yeah, but in context, numbers have to be taken in context.
How do you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wait, okay, so in the context of Mexico having much higher murder rate, what do you think that says about Mexico?
Like he just said, not to be a dick, I didn't mean to say it like that, but he did just say that the murders in Mexico are much closer affiliated with organized crime than in America, where it's more random. So the numbers itself,
it's everywhere. So you have a much higher chance of getting murdered by the cartel than a random person, and also you have a much higher chance of just getting murdered. Really?
Well, he's saying since I'm not involved with the cartel, I am not part of that risk.
Yeah, but everybody is.
Not really.
So that's another mode of contention there, right? And it also depends on which states in Mexico that we're talking about, right? In Durango, in particular, there's not that much. I mean, yeah, El Chapo was, there's some of that there, but the irony is because of the monopoly that he kind of had on the situation, very few people would just fuck with people for no reason at all, really. So it actually ended up being, at least from their family's account, more safe than say other places. Because if El Chapo's kids are going to go to school, there's probably not going to be a lot of fucking like bullshit there, right? Now since there's been that vacuum that's been sort of created, it's kind of like now the situation is kind of different because now you have like his sons, and I think there was like one other guy that was like his second in command that got like picked up or some shit. So it's kind of more like a free for all, but then also the military is kind of weak there, and because you have China and South America, that's obviously trying to give technology to like everyone just for monetary reasons. Now a lot of them have tablets and like high tech computers and shit that they didn't have before, which is kind of interesting. So it's kind of the dynamics of Mexico have changed dramatically since El Chapo had been captured. And
but just looking at Durango, it looks like they're 7th overall in homicides out of the 30 states.
That's not too bad.
What?
I mean, dude, compare that to fucking Chicago. Like
Detroit.
It's fine.
Okay, let's compare
DC.
that to Chicago.
I would say Detroit's probably better case.
So are we?
Well, no, because Eminem's there, so it's the summer, so they tried to. You can't use any of those. They're like steroid stats. You can't look at those.
Are we just backing off the claim that the U.S. is the best, or not the best, the worst prison, the worst prison system in the world? Or
I said it's up there.
Chicago had about 688. Durango was 1,100. So almost double.
Okay.
Wait, is Chicago getting better?
Chicago has been better than Durango. Yes, a city is better than a state. Go figure. But
what about Cape Town, South Africa?
Well, I mean, but yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's I mean, they go to Mexico. The fucking her family was just there. It's
holy shit, 3,000.
That's what I was saying, bro. You have to look at these in context. Or Caracas, Venezuela.
All right, so Mexico
don't look up any statistics on Liberia, for the love of God. I still have family there.
Beats South Africa.
You said Liberia?
Yeah, I'm part. My father was from Liberia. So.
Oh, dope! That's dope, man. That's dope. I'm just African American.
Wow.
I don't know what else I got going on. I wish I had some cool.
No, the diamonds.
Does all of your family have hands?
They do.
You don't have.
They do on that side. So yeah.
That's not fair. That's not a fair comparison.
Yeah, and to be frank, he came over in the 80s and 90s. Actually, I think it was 85. My mom in the 90s.
So what other metric?
The Liberian Civil War. Well, there were actually 2 civil wars that happened back to back, actually. But they typically, when it's referred to, they just view it as one thing, because a lot of the same people were involved with both. And Charles Taylor had been excommunicated. So ever since Ellen Johnson's relief, and now you had George Weah, it's sort of on a better track, it seems. But at the time, the Civil War was not great. So a lot of people. I think they had a Netflix thing on it, actually.
What other metric does Mexico have that we should look at other than overcrowding?
What, for prisons? For comparing Mexico to American prisons?
Yeah.
We have harsher sentencing laws, I think.
Yeah, but that's not. So that's the justice system, not the prison.
Okay, fair enough.
Wait, isn't the prison part of the justice system?
So no, one is the punishment side, the other one is the sentencing side.
So the criminal justice system does not include prisons.
Prisons don't determine sentences, right?
I mean, you could argue it's part of the.
That's more of a philosophical question.
You could argue.
No, it's not a philosophical
If you want to argue that
question.
the criminal justice system is worse, you can. But
you don't get
wouldn't
life
say
in
that,
prison as determined by the prison. You get life in prison as determined by the judicial.
Okay, you're right. I'm just saying, it's a part of it, but I won't belabor the point. You're right. So it's whatever.
It's just that, usually when I hear criminal justice system, it always includes talking about a prison.
It's part of the criminal justice system. That's true. It's just not part. The judiciary part is not part of the prison side. Obviously, they're connected, but they're not the same thing.
You could have the most overcrowded prison in the world, but if you get convicted of murder, they're not going to let you go because you're how bad your prisons are. You're still going to go to jail. So it doesn't really matter the state of the prisons. They give you the best prisons in the world, and you can still get life in prison. Doesn't matter. So.
I would say the sort of, I guess the approach in American prisons broadly is a bit, I don't know, it's either on par or maybe a bit worse, because like the approach has an emphasis on punishment rather than like rehabilitation.
You think Mexican prisons promote rehabilitation more than American prisons?
No, I'd say it's
Are
either
they still
on par.
caning people in Singapore?
Who's what?
Wait,
In
Singapore, that's not
Singapore,
even.
They
What?
used to cane people in
Yes,
prison.
they still cane people.
Yeah,
What does that
they,
mean? What's
Singapore
They hit 'em with a
cane
stick.
is
Like a bamboo stick. They just pull
Oh,
out.
that's awful.
It is. So, but you think Mexico emphasizes
worse than
rehabilitation
Oz.
more than the
Okay, how
United
about this?
States does?
American prisoners can technically be slaves. I don't think that happens in Mexican prisons.
What do you mean they can technically be slaves?
Oh
First of
yeah,
all,
he's right.
You
They
have
can.
to pay people in the U.S. and they have to be willing. You
No,
can't
no.
force
He's
them to
100%
do
right.
labor.
He's 100% right. Slavery is still a thing.
If it was a
where
thing,
13th
it's not
Amendment
still a
section
thing.
13th Amendment Section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as punishment of a crime.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
they
was
recently had a
later
vote.
undone. That was undone in like what, the 40s or 50s?
No, it's still a
No, it
thing.
wasn't. It
It's still a
wasn't.
thing.
So that's actually why they had a this past election cycle. It was Alabama, Louisiana. What was it? There were a couple other states, the southern states, that had on their ballot. Do they want to abolish slavery even in prison or not? And I think every place but Louisiana said yes. So Louisiana said no, and it was a quite overwhelming failure, actually. The reason they have to do that at the state level is because the federal government still allows it. So that
Can
is
you
one.
give any? Can you give any example of this actually like happening?
Yeah, they
Like
do have
now.
people like outside
What,
like cutting
slavery?
grass,
What do you mean?
Yeah.
like cutting grass and like picking up trash.
No, I
and,
just
building-
I just said. Well, wait. What do you? I guess I don't understand. I don't understand the semantic of your question. I don't understand
It's
the
not a
like what you're.
semantic because you guys are bringing up like the 13th Amendment. And
I
shit.
don't mean semantic as a pejorative. I mean semantic as in you have a particular meaning in a context that I cannot see, and I
Who
want
right
to see
now
it.
is working and not getting paid?
Yeah.
American prisoners.
No, they get paid.
Yeah, because everything I'm seeing seems they get paid. It may not be much.
They get paid, and it
but-
has to be voluntary. You can't force them to do it, and then
Yes,
like,
you
pay
absolutely
them.
can force them to do it.
So the thing that I
community
just
service
referenced.
slavery? Is community
So the thing
service
that I
slavery?
just hold on, the thing that I just referenced, did everyone hear that and then just go, yeah, and then just move or
Well, we all heard it, but the problem is that we like
all
the
heard you
rebuttal
say
of
that it is allowed, but we didn't hear an actual example of it happening.
Yeah, so the rebuttal of that was I forget who said it, but the rebuttal of that was like in the 40s and 50s we got rid of it, and it seems like that's true. That like
Okay,
true. Wait, when you say it's true, in what sense do you mean it's true?
In practice, you have to, if you're gonna work in a prison, you're it's gonna be voluntary, and two, you're gonna get paid. It may be a small amount, but you will get paid.
Right. So what I'm saying is like, where is your evidence? So you made the claim. So where's your evidence for that?
I can refute at least.
I just see a lack of evidence saying that like.
No, I got you. I got you right
happening.
here. I got you right here. So